Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today we're doing something a little different. We're setting aside our usual nonfiction sources and turning to a novel that, honestly, it reads like a sociological study.
It really does.
Our deep dive is into Half His Age, which is just this powerful, often really brutal look into the mind of a high school senior. Her name's Waldo. And she is just grappling with these massive, destabilizing questions of identity, desire, and, well, a relationship that is fundamentally illicit. An affair with her English teacher, Mr. Corgi.
Yeah, and this is such a raw and uncompromising piece of source material. So our mission here is to treat it less like a novel and more like an extremely detailed case study.
Right.
We're here to extract the core insights, about how we chase emotional connection when our sense of self-worth is just fundamentally broken. We're going to be mapping the terrain between, say, genuinely primal attraction and this really self-destructive transactional behavior.
And a huge part of that is shame.
Oh, it's central. We'll be tracing the deep, complex scar tissue of socioeconomic shame and how that shame drives her to use consumption and even her own body as a kind of currency in this desperate pursuit of a lovable self.
It's a huge mission because really every single action in this story, every risk Waldo takes, it's all rooted in some internal trauma. So we're going to trace her journey logically. We'll start with the painful baseline, which is this profound dissatisfaction she has in her peer relationships.
That really sets her up for what comes next.
Exactly. Then we pivot to the shock of her intense, almost biological attraction to Mr. Corgi and, how his specific brand of vulnerability just completely captures her.
And then from there.
And from there, we will track the physical affair, but always anchoring our analysis back to her underlying issues of shame and identity and why she ends up settling for being a man's escape rather than his equal. Okay, so let's start exactly where Waldo is before the earthquake, right? Before Mr. Corgi. Her relationship history is it's defined by this profound emotional resignation. And the stand-in for all of this is a character named Randy Julep, a relationship that's just so explicitly transactional and defined by, well, low expectations.
Right. Randy serves as the perfect foil. He establishes what Waldo has learned to accept as, the norm, and the language the author uses to describe their physical intimacy. It's so dry, it's almost clinical.
It's completely clinical. It's described as clunky and perfunctory.
Clunky and perfunctory. I mean, it's clumsy, it's performance-based, it's just something to be gotten through. She reduces the whole act to sweat and bumping in genitals.
Ugh.
It's a mechanical collision, right? Not an intimate connection. And that tells you everything. Waldo sees sex as a chore that gives you a little bit of transient pleasure, but absolutely no communion.
And the level of detail the author gives us about Randy's technique, it's so crucial for understanding that emotional vacuum.
Yeah.
There's this specific detached horror in the description of the cunnilingus.
Oh, that part.
His slimy tongue that loop-de-loops over and over like a carnival ride, mechanical and passionless. It's just, it's such a specific metaphor.
It's incredibly effective, though. Because if you think about a carnival ride, right, it's loud, it's bright, it's dizzying, but ultimately it's cheap, it's repetitive, and you end up exactly where you started.
Exactly where you started.
And that's how Waldo experiences it. It's mechanical, it's devoid of any real intention or passion. It's a performance Randy feels he has to give, but she can feel the lack of genuine engagement. It's a chore for both of them.
Which is why they have the ice cream ritual immediately after.
Yes, the ice cream. It's an immediate comfort, a displacement activity.
So why does she need that? Why that specific sweet distraction after every single time?
Because of that comfort, that ice cream is designed to avoid scratching what she calls the itchy fact that I settled for pleasure when I wanted connection.
Wow.
And that's the core tragedy of her baseline relationships. She's trading these deep, unmet emotional needs for a cheap, sweet distraction. The ice cream is just a way of saying, okay, this wasn't about him or us. It was just about getting a brief hit of dopamine, and now I'm done. Randy is just a utility.
Just a body performing a service.
Exactly. No emotional risk, no connection whatsoever.
And this resignation, this profound dissatisfaction, it's directly linked to her earliest identity trauma, something that's been sort of baked in since she was a little kid. The source pinpoints the moment her mother called her hard to love when she was just 7, which later gets reframed as, you need a lot and you are a lot.
And that reframing is such a critical psychological knot to untangle. I mean, the mother probably meant well, trying to soften the blow of the original comment.
Right, trying to fix it.
But the underlying message is exactly the same. Your innate self, your intensity is a burden. So she internalizes that wanting things, having a complex personality, being a lot, is precisely what makes her difficult and therefore, potentially unlovable.
So how does she try to solve that? What's her coping mechanism?
She tries to shrink herself. She tries to convince herself and the men around her that she only wants less and will expect even less. She's watering down her own personality, presenting what she calls a cardboard cutout version of herself.
Hmm.
Her whole goal is to be manageable, low maintenance, easy to love. It's a very conscious performance, all designed to sustain these empty relationships, like the one with Randy. She thinks if she just performs the acceptable, easy version of herself, she'll finally earn a connection.
But she hits a wall. Her body rebels.
Her body rebels. She realizes that a body can't be forced to generate a spark that just isn't there. And it leads to her body just saying, no more.
The body knows.
The body's withdrawal of enthusiasm is the ultimate truth teller here. It's a physical veto against the emotional compromise she keeps making. And it's a signal to Weldo that this, settling for these performative, mechanical relationships, it's just not sustainable.
And if her body is rejecting it, then she has to stop settling.
She has to. She needs an intensity that actually matches a lot that she's been trying so hard to suppress.
And if she's done settling for the people, she's definitely done with the trappings of their predictable lives.
Yeah.
This is where her observational skills, which are really driven by judgment, turn on the typical high school boy. The description is fantastic.
Oh, it's so good.
They're defined by their boners and their closed commodomes.
It's the ultimate reduction. I mean, she strips away any pretense of depth and just reduces their entire existence to rudimentary biological function and mild cosmetic irritation. It's funny, but it's also so bitter. It just conveys this overwhelming boredom.
And that judgment, it extends to Randy's room, his habitat. She observes it, and it perfectly encapsulates his whole low-effort existence. The forgotten plate of pizza crusts, the dirty sock being used to wipe himself off after sex.
Yeah. It's not just messy. It's a symptom of this profound apathy.
But the real kicker is the cinematic iconography on his wall. The 3 movie posters: Scarface, Goodfellas, Pulp Fiction.
Which she cynically labels the Holy Trinity.
Ah, yes, the official decor of low-effort existence. It's almost depressing how accurate that cinematic checklist still is. Why is that trio so important here?
Because it signifies a very specific, very predictable, and deeply unoriginal type of masculinity. These are films about idealized, slightly violent, deeply controlled male power. It's all a performance. For Waldo, who is starving for authenticity, these posters represent a closed loop of inherited male identity. Randy is performing a masculinity he saw in a movie, not one he genuinely developed himself. He is predictable, and she is starving for complexity. Her judgment tells her that he is boring because he has no internal life beyond this predictable script.
She needs a man who operates completely outside the script.
Entirely.
So Waldo is desperate for something authentic, something that breaks the script, and then Mr. Corgi arrives.
Right on cue.
And what's so striking is the immediate contrast. He doesn't ease into the teacher role. He doesn't do the syllabus first day stuff. He just delivers this truth bomb that cuts through all the pretense. His opening line isn't about literature. It's an emotional gut punch.
I'm a failure, an absolute failure.
Later.
That line is the key that just unlocks Waldo's attention. I mean, she's surrounded by people performing success, right? Peers performing coolness, teachers performing authority, her own mother performing resilience. And Corgi does the complete opposite.
He immediately signals that he operates outside that whole performative sphere.
Exactly. For Waldo, a girl who feels like a failure and is trying desperately to hide it, meeting someone who publicly claims failure is it's mesmerizing.
And he backs it up, too, with specifics.
Yeah.
He details his own disappointing reality. He's 39, he's teaching high school in Anchorage. He's forfeited his dream of being a novelist because he chose comfort over betting on himself.
Yeah, he couldn't handle the rejection. He prioritized affordability and takeout over finishing a draft. And it's the articulation of this deep, relatable regret. It's not just, oh, I failed. It's, I chose the easy way out.
And Waldo, who is constantly trying to choose the easy path herself, the cardboard cutout version of herself, she sees in him the consequence of that choice.
But the difference is that he is articulating his shortcoming. He's holding it up for everyone to scrutinize while she's trying desperately to bury hers. He is self-aware about his lack of courage, and that self-awareness becomes incredibly intoxicating to her.
Which brings us to this crucial psychological pivot point in the entire story. It's one that feels really counterintuitive at first, but it makes perfect sense for Waldo. And that's the distinction between finding someone attractive versus feeling a primal attraction towards them.
This is the real genius of the source material, I think. Waldo explicitly observes that Corgi is, her words, patently unattractive. She notes his physical decline, the faded, atrophied, withered look of middle age, the thinning hair, the soft jawline, broken blood vessels.
By any standard measure of conventional desirability, he's not it.
Not at all. He is diminished. He is definitively not a prize fighter, as she puts it.
And yet the attraction is instant. It's sudden, and she calls it primal. It's an attraction that feels immediate and physical, and she says it makes less sense intellectually. Her body knows it before her mind can even process it. So if he is physically unattractive, why the primal pull?
Because the attraction isn't aesthetic, it's existential. It is rooted in his willingness to be brutally honest about his life's shortcomings. He's facing the disappointing reality of where their life landed, and he's not hiding behind the facade of a respectable job or, a stamp drawer.
So she's so starved for genuine emotion that his radical honesty just overrides any aesthetic deficiency.
It completely overrides it. It's the admission of his flawed humanity that magnetizes her. It proves that he is not the cardboard cutout or the Holy Trinity performance she finds so boring.
She gets very specific about this, too. She states that her vagina pulses not because he's a failure, but because he's capable of calling himself one, of being raw about it. It's the vulnerability that activates her desire, not his status.
And this bond is immediately solidified through the vector of their shared intellectual honesty, which is writing. He gives them the I am from poem assignment, which is specifically designed to uncover emotional truth and origins.
And this is where Waldo's talent, the one thing she desperately wants to rely on instead of her body, can finally shine.
Right, and you see the stark contrast between her and her peers, like Vanessa, whose submission reads like an American Girl magazine clipping. All sweetness and light, double Dutch and love. It's utterly sanitized.
Whereas Waldo delivers a confession of deep, entrenched shame.
She uses the assignment to just excavate everything she has desperately tried to hide. She details her specific, harrowing origins. She recites that she is from a white trash trailer park, from a mom who's needy and absent at the same time, from a faceless father, and ultimately from a regret and a mistake.
That is just a staggering piece of self-exposure for a 17-year-old. I mean, she is putting the entire blueprint of her shame onto paper and handing it to this authority figure she's already physically and emotionally drawn to.
It's a huge risk.
So what's Corgi's immediate assessment? What's his reaction?
His reaction is the antidote to that hard-to-love comment that has defined her entire life. He gives her the validation that she is worthy, not despite her mess, but because of her ability to articulate it. He tells her, a voice? That's a rarity, and you have one.
So he's not commenting on the tragedy of her life. He's respecting her craft and her courage.
Exactly. And that confirms for her that her authentic, messy, a lot self is valuable. It immediately establishes this intellectual and emotional foundation for their relationship. That exchange is more intoxicating to her than any physical flirtation could ever have been.
Because it proves she can be seen fully. Her shame, her complicated mother, her messy desires, and still be valued.
Precisely. This intellectual bond, this reciprocal honesty, it precedes, and in her mind, it justifies the physical relationship that's coming. She thinks, if he respects my deepest truth, he respects me. And if he respects me, then this must be okay.
So, with that intellectual foundation laid, we need to circle back to Waldo's core coping mechanism against that profound shame. Because if she can't change her origins, she tries to change her presentation.
Right.
Shopping becomes this frantic attempt to buy a new identity.
It's consumption as therapy, or maybe consumption as transformation. You see her go on these constant, almost violent shopping binges, Asora, Shane, Forever 21. She's not buying clothes. She is trying to purchase a personality.
She's trying to burn money she doesn't have on the promise that if she just buys the right lipstick or the right pair of pants, she can close the gap between her trailer park reality and the polished, stable image she so desires.
The belief is almost magical, isn't it? That a stick of blush could somehow transform her life or close the gap between herself and, say, a polished figure like Margot Robbie. She trusts the promises written in cute typefaces on the backs of little cardboard packages more than she trusts human connection.
Because human connection, especially with her friend Franny, taught her that her shame is permanent.
Right. But consumerism offers a constant, accessible, temporary solution. She's trying to purchase her way out of being defined as white trash. And the desperation is so intense that it overrides all logic, including, morality or even her own health.
The perfect example of that is the Shane incident. She explicitly acknowledges the damning ethics of fast fashion, but she justifies buying these $12 pants because she needs the clothes, and she uses the site's warning, the one about cancer, to triage her desires.
That is one of the darkest, most telling details in the whole book. She uses the cancer warning to prioritize my cart. She decides that, okay, while velvet trousers aren't worth the health risk, a crop top, which she needs for the immediate future of her relationship with Corky, is.
Wow.
Her desperate need for external validation, which is fueled by her poverty and her shame, it completely eclipses both ethical and health considerations. It shows you the high price she's willing to pay just to look presentable and temporarily feel better about herself.
And that need for external validation also manifests as this rigorous physical performance, what she calls the race for beauty before a date with Corgi. The routine is just obsessive. Aggressive scrubbing, exfoliating, oiling, applying makeup with this desperate urgency.
She sees her body as a product that requires constant maintenance and updating. She invests $114 in new, shiny, better toiletries at Target, which she rationalizes as a reasonable price point for investing in myself.
But look at how she defines that investment. She asks herself, what is a woman, really, if not silky, if not smooth, if not supple, perky, and poreless?
Her existence in her mind is conditional on her physical perfection.
And she makes a direct trade-off. She says, some people choose to further their education, I choose perfume. She's explicitly stating that her only viable currency is aesthetic, not intellectual.
And that desperation, that belief that her body is her only valuable asset, you have to trace it directly back to her mother, who provides the ultimate blueprint for instability. The mother operates on this consistent boom and bust cycle.
Yeah, can you detail that cycle for us? What does her mother's pattern look like, especially when a man like this guy, Tony, exits the picture?
When the men inevitably leave, that's the bust, the mother just spirals into this profound, weeks-long depression. The descriptions are vivid and heartbreaking. Matted hair, dramatic weight loss, staring vacantly at the wall.
Refusing to eat.
Yeah, refusing the Campbell's soup. Waldo tries to heat up for her. And this often leads to her losing her low-paying job. She essentially just checks out of reality, forcing Waldo to become the functional parent.
But the only thing that pulls her out of that depressive state, that initiates the boom phase, is a new man.
It's always a shiny new man or a new, usually lower-paying job. It's relentless. The mother is functionally unable to achieve emotional stability outside of a man's presence.
And yet she has the self-awareness to warn Waldo.
She does. She says, don't let men run your life, ruin your life, don't wind up like me. But she offers no practical model for escape. She gives Waldo 2 warnings, but only one model: dependency.
And Waldo sees this so clearly. She recognizes her mother's inherent instability. There's a heartbreaking anecdote about a promised road trip to Seward when Waldo was 4, a memory the mother often recounts as their favorite moment. But Waldo doesn't actually remember it.
And that small detail just speaks volumes. It highlights the profound lack of reliable reality in Waldo's life. Her mother's memories and promises are as fragile as her employment. Waldo lives in this constant state of uncertainty, which explains her desperate need to anchor herself to something, even if that something is the admitted failure of Mr. Corgi.
That need for certainty, for stable connection, was just violently betrayed in her closest friendship, the one with Franny, where Waldo initially found this affection and stability in Franny's big and clean and safe house.
That initial sense of safety was a total mirage. The crushing, pivotal realization comes in 9th grade church class during a lesson on charity. And Waldo recognizes that Franny views her as the friendless she had befriended. She was just a hole punch on our God stamp card, a fixer-upper to her savior.
She was charity work.
She was charity work. And that distinct friendship as genuine connection versus friendship as charity work is just devastating.
How does that realization change Waldo's relationship with her female peers? Does it push her toward the older male gaze for validation?
It creates this profound bitterness and distrust. Waldo realizes that even Franny's kindness wasn't selfless, it was self-congratulatory. Franny wasn't connecting with Waldo's spirit, she was collecting credit for helping a pity case.
So if connection with a peer is conditional on her tragedy,
Then she learns that the only way to earn respect is to find someone who values her power, not her pitiable circumstances.
And the final insult comes later, and it's centered on the very thing Corgi validated, her writing. Franny uses the word harrowing, to describe one of Waldo's written pieces.
And Waldo is furious because she sees right through the compliment. She shoots back that the quality of writing isn't about the tragedy of the facts, but in how you tell the story, in getting people to feel what you want them to feel.
She wants respect for her craft.
Exactly. Franny using the word harrowing implies that Waldo's life, her tragedy, is the sole source of her writing's value. It denies her agency, denies her craft. This profound betrayal just fuels her need to prove herself to Corgi, a man who, saw her voice first.
So Waldo is now operating from this position of profound insecurity, desperate to be seen as respected, not pitied. And this is the emotional baggage she brings to the dinner invitation at Mr. Corgi's house.
Right.
An invitation he explicitly frames as not a pity dinner, of course, but out of respect, which is exactly the validation she's been chasing.
And that dinner scene is so structurally vital because it's a brilliant study in contrast. Waldo invests aggressively in the race for beauty, trying to purchase the superficial markers of worth, and then she meets Gwen, Corgi's wife.
Who isn't traditionally beautiful, but she embodies this effortless, established ease.
She's described as waif-like and linen-clad, possessing tranquil domesticity and smelling of expensive products and meditation. She is the physical manifestation of the middle-class stability and self-assuredness that Waldo has never known.
She is the goal.
She is the goal, and Waldo is desperately trying to absorb her essence, hoping it's somehow contagious.
But the dynamics at the dinner are immediately so painful. Waldo observes Corgi as submissive, emasculated, only contributing occasional tag-ons to Gwen's dominant performance.
Oh, Gwen is clearly the primary narrator and the domestic superior. The entire evening is structured just to confirm this hierarchy, and the infamous blackened chicken piccata story is the perfect passive-aggressive tool to maintain that control.
Ugh, that anecdote, where Gwen recounts Corgi's failed attempt at cooking for her, only for her to swoop in and rescue him with her meatballs. It's so painful in its familiarity.
It's a rehearsed routine, one of their heavily rotated stories, that establishes Gwen as the competent domestic rescuer. It embarrasses Corgi, but it also allows them to avoid the grunt work of reflection, the messy reality of their own marriage.
And Corgi's fatigue with the performance, those small glances he gives towards Waldo.
They are the new shared currency between him and his student. They share a judgment of the facade.
And Waldo's own fragile sense of dignity is just shattered when she makes the mistake of revealing her shame. She mentions almost casually that her mother bags groceries at Safeway.
And this is the moment where Waldo's reality crashes right into Gwen's tranquil domesticity. Gwen takes a long, deliberate sip of wine, and the silence just communicates everything. Waldo realizes there is no safe path for her reality.
The truth is too messy for Gwen's carefully curated existence.
It is. The silence is a more crushing judgment than Franny's pity ever was. And in that moment, as Gwen is judging her, Corgi gives Waldo this discreet look, which she instantly interprets as a shared judgment of Gwen's pretense.
He even thinks, what is connection, really, if not shared judgment?
Which accelerates their dynamic. They're now bonded as outsiders looking in on Gwen's perfect but boring stability. And that bond crosses the first physical boundary during the Thanksgiving walk.
Right after, Corgi offers another profound piece of vulnerability. He shares the raw details of his 15-year-old sister's death.
Finding her splayed out on the ceramic tiles and how his mother reacted by abandoning her favorite rice bowls, this vulnerability rooted in death and profound loss is exactly the kind of authenticity Waldo craves.
He also admits, I wish I felt that comfortable with being lost now, indicating he has walled himself off from that kind of pain.
He opens himself up, and Waldo takes it as permission to act. She slips on the ice, he catches her arm, she smells him. It's this sequence of close physical contact.
And she lunges for the kiss.
It's an act of intense forward momentum driven by her need to confirm the shared feeling she thinks is there.
And his immediate stern rejection is brutal. Waldo, you're 17 and I'm married and I'm your teacher. You're wrong about the nature of this dynamic.
And that rejection throws her right back into that shame spiral of being delusional, unaware, and naive. It's the worst possible outcome for her. But Corgi's subsequent absence, which is due to his father's sudden death, provides the crack she needs to re-engage.
She sees the vulnerability of his recent loss as a window of opportunity. At the winter formal, she tracks him down in his dark classroom, determined not to be spooked off by his moralizing.
She uses his sadness, his heaviness, as an opportunity to connect, to comfort him. And this is where she begins to manipulate the manipulator.
Also,
She initiates the embrace, she lifts his arms around her neck, and she feels him grow hard immediately, and the realization hits her. He wants me, or at least his body does.
So she internalizes that distinction.
Yeah.
His mind is tied up in morals and rules, but his body just is.
Which justifies her next ruthless move. She forces him into his chair, straddles him, and conducts this dry hump, relentless in her pursuit and her demand to be seen. She's demanding acknowledgement. Call me baby. Look at me.
She's forcing him out of his carefully constructed role.
She is. She's demanding that he acknowledge his true primal response to her, not the role he plays for Gwen or his students. And by forcing him to submit and climax in his khakis, she achieves the ultimate power. She has the ability to affect him. She proves she is not charity, she is not pitiable, and she is certainly not boring.
She is the intensity that matches the a lot she carries inside.
She wins the initial power dynamic, proving she's capable of forcing a reaction from him.
So once that psychological barrier is just broken, the affair escalates.
Oh.
But Waldo's victory is immediately undermined by her own internal shame.
Right.
When Corky finally comes over, drunk, which she finds appealing, he's childlike and needy, his concrete walls knocked down, the setting immediately becomes a liability for her.
This is the moment Waldo has dreaded, where her socioeconomic reality collides with their intimacy. She tries desperately to hide the evidence of her white trashness, her mother's $2 magazines, the flickering Marshall's lamp, but the apartment just shouts white trash, despite her efforts.
And the shame is so intense, it's almost paralyzing her. She's internally fighting the image of Franny's judgmental eyes and this fear that Corky will look at a Ross tag and think, I need to go back to my wife. She buys pillows from Crate and Barrel.
It's the deep-seated terror that her environment will define her and disqualify her from love. She is desperate to show him that she can't be reduced to or defined by it. And this internal conflict means that even in her most intimate moment with the man who claimed to value her truth, she is still performing. She's still worried about the background scenery.
The first time they have sex, the act starts as a connection. It's rhythmic, painfully connected, and it's replacing her stupid anxieties and cyclical thoughts with the blank slate of the act itself.
But that connection is immediately subverted by Corky's arrogance.
Yeah, he abruptly stops and tells her, your turn, show me what you've got.
And that single move fundamentally shifts the dynamic from shared intimacy to an audition. He removes the shared rhythm and forces her to perform for his pleasure. He puts the labor of the sex entirely on her.
And her reaction is just to surrender. She tries bouncing on him in what she calls a whiny plea for him to dominate her again. Why? Why does she yield to his demand to take charge, only to beg him to take the control back?
Because she knows her role. She wanted that initial victory of making him react, but she doesn't actually want the responsibility of being an equal partner, not in the bedroom or in life. She needs to be defined and dominated.
So she prefers the structure and certainty of his control.
Even if it's aggressive. He ends up dominating her until she screams, because submission is easier for her than defining her own needs. That promise of genuine equal connection is immediately replaced by a comfortable, dominant, submissive roleplay.
As the affair continues, the constant need for discretion reinforces this transactional, rushed nature of their time. He changes her name in his phone to Kurt to avoid Gwen's suspicion.
Yeah, and the secrecy doesn't feel romantic. It feels like management. The sex becomes frenzied and passionate, yes, but it's always a blur that obliterates my mind, leaving only slippery traces, quick flashes of visuals. It's evidence, not memory.
The relationship is becoming defined by its time constraint, not its depth.
Absolutely. And this recklessness is confirmed when they have the near miss in the cleaning closet with Mr. Wembley, which makes Corgi insist, we need to be more responsible with this.
And responsible, for him, means increasing the secrecy and making sure Waldo accepts the limits. The toll of being his escape is just perfectly crystallized by one of the most painful moments in the entire source material. The phone call during oral sex.
This is the definitive moment of the relationship's true power dynamic. Gwen calls, and Corgi immediately goes physically flaccid and verbally cold. He instantly switches to his wife voice.
A sound she describes as placating and cowardly.
And he meekly accepts Gwen's commanding instructions about needing 32-ounce cranberries, not the 24-ounce size. It's the banality of the interruption that makes it so devastating. He goes from being this intense primal lover to an emasculated errand runner in a single ringtone.
And Waldo's reaction is this fascinating psychological maneuver.
It really is. She feels the initial sourness of jealousy and humiliation. She sees Gwen dominating and controlling him, emasculating the man Waldo feels she liberated, but she immediately understands the subtext.
Which is?
That Corgi is looking for an escape from that cranberry-sized domination. And she performs her calculated response. She immediately leans forward, stroking him and swallowing his cum, explicitly performing her role as the anti-Gwen.
She understands that Corgi needs an escape who asks for nothing.
Nothing. Gwen demands 32 ounces of cranberries. Waldo demands nothing but access. By swallowing, she performs the ultimate act of submission and acceptance, confirming that she is the escape who provides the aggressive masculinity his wife takes away. She internalizes that making demands would kill us, so she just makes herself want less. She sacrifices her needs to secure her place.
But that unsustainable bargain eventually breaks down when Waldo inevitably demands more. Her birthday reinforces her instability. Her mother gives her an old electric scooter, her own mascara, and Sour Patch Kids, gifts that just speak to arrested development. And Corgi cancels their planned picnic for Gwen's friend's party and Gregory's karate ceremony.
He reinforces the reality. She is always secondary to his primary life. He attempts to bandage the disappointment with this date at Beluga Point, sharing a powerful fantasy with her.
The fantasy about time?
Yeah, he tells her he wishes the world would stop, they would be in Hawaii, and they would have time, having enough of it.
And Waldo, who is so desperate for proof of reciprocal feelings, she views this fantasy, this vision of uninterrupted time, as absolute proof that he wants a future with her too.
But the fantasy is only a temporary reprieve from reality, which comes roaring back at the restaurant confrontation where Waldo finally breaks and demands he stop taking Gwen's calls. She demands respect for their shared time.
And Corgi's reaction is initial panic. The text says he registers that she is starting to see through me, blurring her into the endless pool of wants that all women apparently share. He sees her becoming Gwen.
And this panic fuels his masterful deflection. He uses a classic guilt trip. You're usually so understanding. He's pinning the problem back on her, reinforcing the idea that her value lies in her non-needy, non-demanding maturity.
And then he executes the ultimate control maneuver.
He shifts the responsibility back to her entirely. You're in control here, okay? If this ever stops working for you, we will stop.
Which sounds like empowerment, but it functions as the ultimate threat. She now carries the full burden of ending the relationship, something she is terrified to do.
So she accepts the lie of control and immediately reverts to her role, sacrificing her own need for honesty and uninterrupted time. And why? Because she realizes that even this abusive, controlling secondary role is better than the alternative.
Which is what?
Going on being supremely unfazed like I am by everybody else, she would rather be intensely hurt by him than return to the profound emotional numbness of Randy Julep. That intensity is her lifeblood, and she will pay any price to keep it flowing.
This is such a difficult, nuanced journey to observe. At its core, Waldo used the one genuine asset she had, her intellectual vulnerability, her writing talent, to find connection.
She did.
But she so quickly traded that intellectual honesty for a transactional role, she becomes valuable only as his escape, accepting the condition that she has to be the good girl who asks for nothing.
And underpinning this entire self-betrayal are these deep layers of shame. The constant, frantic need to transform herself via consumerism, the endless shopping, the intensive race for beauty, it all stems directly from internalizing that white trash label, her mother's failures, and the idea that she is a lot.
So she views her physical body and her sexual availability as the only thing she has to offer.
They're the only currency she thinks she has to earn respect and connection from a man who represents the stability she lacks. Her body is the sacrifice she makes to earn a fleeting sense of self-worth.
And the ultimate irony here, which I think provides the clearest takeaway for you listening, is her seeking validation from instability. First, the danger of pursuing respect and connection from individuals who are just fundamentally compromised.
Right, due to age, power imbalance, marriage, or their own profound self-absorption. Absolutely. And secondly, you have to look at the profound irony of her attraction. She needed a man whose emotional landscape matched her own messy, chaotic life because she believes that shared misery equals connection.
So she subconsciously sought validation by trying to fix or rescue a man who explicitly introduced himself as a failure.
But she mistook a cry for help for a genuine bond. He was simply looking for a convenient, temporary escape from his reality, while she was looking for a permanent anchor, a savior.
And finally, the core conflict for Waldo remains totally unresolved. She continues to sacrifice her most fundamental needs, uninterrupted time, honesty, respect for her complexity, just to maintain access to the man who tells her she makes him feel young again.
He is looking backward, for youth and escape. She's looking forward for maturity and depth. Those roles can never, ever align under these circumstances.
They just can.
And that profound misalignment brings us to our final provocative thought for you to consider. Mr. Corgi explicitly admitted in that intense classroom confrontation that he uses his vulnerability, his failures, his sister's death, as a form of performance art to connect with his students. Yet Waldo finds this engineered truth irresistible. So this raises a critical question for all of us. In a world saturated with information, with social media, with these carefully curated personal narratives, if authenticity looks exactly like vulnerability, and that vulnerability is consciously used for manipulation, how do we, as consumers of personal stories and as seekers of connection, distinguish genuine emotional sharing from highly sophisticated performance? The deeper the story, it seems, the more critical we must be of the speaker's true intent.